Hey everybody, and welcome to another video. In this video, we're gonna have a look at a Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay book. Now, it's true that at the moment, the old world is back in vogue after being killed off before. But what we're gonna do here today is gonna have a look at the old world when it was sort of the old world. So this is the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay game. It's a role-playing game, so it's not exactly a tabletop war game, but you'd find that it's from here that a lot of the tenets of the Warhammer Fantasy battle game found its roots. This game actually came out in 1986, so it's 1986, and well, that's a long time ago. It's almost coming into, what was it, for 40 years, something like that, something crazy like that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to flip through this very quickly. Maybe I'll just point out the high points and low points of the book. But for those of you guys who have actually had this book before, comment and let me know, if you remember this book at all. For those of you who are new, hey, did you actually know there was a Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay? And mind you, this is before, Fantasy Flight and stuff like that, took over the license. So here's a peek into a little bit of history. Right, so on the cover you'll see, that's a troll slayer, an ogre, you got some goblins and stuff like that. But let's go in. A grim world of perilous adventure. Grim seems to be the key word when it comes to Games Workshop. Grim dark, grim world, blah blah blah. Anyways, the old world, as you can see, there's a little bit of fluff here to get you pulled inside into the game. Now, the art editor for this book is John Blanchet, and if you know the Warhammer or the Games Workshop lore, John Blanchet is integral to how the world looks. Game design development is by Richard Hallowell, Rick Priestley, Graham Davis, Jim Bambra, and Phil Gallagher. Now, why is this important is because you'll be surprised to see how many of these designers actually go on to do some really great things in the hobby. Okay, moving along. Now, for those of you who are actually own this magazine, this may look a bit strange to you. Let me just say that some of us have decided to put some color onto the pages. So I hope you don't mind if it looks a bit strange to you. If yours is probably black. So that's pretty much it, the colors. Okay, so you got the introduction. Introduction is basically what is role-playing game, how to rule the book, the action fantasy world. More what was initially black and white but it's become color plates. This pretty much the introduction tells you everything you need to know to start playing the game, simply because for at the time role-playing was still extremely new. The concept still had to be taught and learned, right? So now in this game, I must say that in this game, the way the game runs, or the way the world runs, is a bit different, or the way a role-playing game runs is a bit different. In most games, the heroes come in as heroes, right? They're heroes, right? But in the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, it's a bit different. You come in as average, everyday people who are destined to be heroes. It sounds similar, but it's actually a bit different. But we'll get to that in a bit. Now, what happens here is you see the characteristics, and most of this you've probably seen if you played any of the Games Workshop games over the years. Movement, weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, wounds, initiative, attacks. Maybe not dexterity. Maybe not intelligence, but maybe not cool either. But most of this you probably know. In the role-playing game, you got fellowship, you got willpower, and that you don't get in the tabletop game. You got your So this is where you create a character. There are 4 different races. There's the human, the wood elf, the dwarf, the halfling. Now age. Let me just say that age plays a big role in this game. Not a big role. I mean, it plays a role, right? For example, if you're older, there are more perks that comes for you if you're older. In fact, but if you're very old, you lose certain things, which is how it works, right? So, and yeah, like all books, you've got your how you create your character, your skills, your database. Now the skill part is extremely interesting because it's mostly it's rather random. You roll the 100 and then you check the chart, and the skills you have, because not only do you choose your different race, you got your different career classes, you got your warriors, rangers, rogues, academics, and stuff like that. Now the thing about this game is where you start, right? So your career is very, very important, right? So why is it important is because, again, not every adventurer starts off as a hero or an adventurer. You start off doing something first, and then something triggers you into action to do your thing. Now this part of the book, this initial part, right, is basically everything you need to get your character going, right? Everything you need to get your character going. Now let's look at what happens towards the in the next part of the book. Now you got all these basic careers, right? And each career you can actually choose to take, right? And each comes with its skills, and it comes with its trappings and stuff like that, right? And what's kind of neat is you can choose anyone. And as you can see, unlike most other role-playing games which are more common, you don't start off as ranger. You start off as a alchemist apprentice, artisan apprentice. You start off as bodyguard, bounty hunter, and then you work your way up into adventure. So a lot of the book, right, if you look through the book, a lot of the book is basically careers. When we ran games of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, the character creation section time took a long time, because there was one book to share amongst many. So each one will take the book back, and they'll go through the book and choose which of the careers they want to take, and it takes a while because again, we're all still young. So you spend a lot of time looking at all the different careers. And I want to point out this one, Ratcatcher, because now if you know anything about anything about the older guys talking about Warhammer Fantasy Battle, they always talk about the Ratcatcher, and that's a good reason for it. He's one of the more popular ones, but back when we first started, we didn't really know that. So we started all different angles. But yeah, the Ratcatcher is now the mythical career that everybody harkens back to. Okay, so moving on, we got skills, how skills are used, and these are all the rundown of the skills, right? And again, all of this is just list after list after list, right? Why? Because you've already chosen your career and you got your set of skills, and these were days when things were not really streamlined. So each character was actually extremely unique. You had extreme variety of different characters, and because of this, it requires a lot of text for you to keep abreast on what you can do, what you can't do. Right, so here's the character sheet. What you might see, which is kind of interesting, is you've got this part over here like this, which is basically your starter profile, the advanced scheme, and your current profile. So you basically have all your modifiers over here, right? Which is kind of cool. And then you got your background character sheet, which is more or less the same with everything else. And then almost immediately, this is not that many. I think it's only about amount of pages. You get into the game master part of the book, and here you get everything you need to know. Here, this is a legit color plate, by the way. You get a rundown on how to actually game master this game. Now there are things in this game which are different, when you compare this to a normal game. Why? Because well, back in the day, each role-playing game seems to have its own little thing. Fate points was the thing for one of the things for Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Now, fate points is basically I want to call it your reroll, or what you can use to save a character. Like for example, if you're about to die a deadly death, right, you can actually use your fate points to fix it. I think, if not mistaken, the use of the fate points. I mean, you had to be very very careful about it because, you want it to be at an extremely, you know, poignant moment. So it helps with the story, which is I think the design element for basically a game like this where the story is extremely important. Then you got your usual, things that you have, in your dungeons and your travelings, your traps, going through walls and stuff like that. Poisons, um, curing disorders, and then you got your alignments. Um, the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay did take some, well, I suppose you would be taking some from the usual Dungeon Dragons. So alignment was also a thing. Yeah, and the thing with alignment is, I mean, if anything, the world of Warhammer Fantasy Battle is actually quite grey. I think very very good is very very rare, but the more soft middle, like a lot more neutral kind of characters seem to be the norm, simply because of the way the whole grim fantasy setting is. Anyways, you got your part over here where you got your advancements, your rate of advance, and then you got your advanced careers. Now you first start off with your basic careers, right? So you give this book to your players and they start choosing your the basic careers, and then you move on to getting advanced careers. Now when you move to advanced careers, you get advanced schemes, and these ones, remember earlier you saw in the character sheet, which is somewhere right here somewhere. Right, advanced schemes, and this is where it is. You get all these additions to your thing, and that basically means that you now have a whole lot of things to read again. Suffice to say that when we were running the games, the character development took weeks. Took weeks, but it was a joyful weeks, I must say. It was joyful, joyful, and lots of reading. Anyways, then you got designing the scenarios, wandering creatures, that the normal Dungeon Dragon stuff. Some art, and there's combat. The thing about combat, which I want to say is very interesting, is they've got the critical damage table, which oh my god, the critical hit chart, which it's really out there. There was another game, I keep falling back on this example. There was another game out there called Rollmaster, which actually used this quite well for effect. But this one had that as well. So you had your critical hit chart, you roll your d100, and you find out what you get, and for example, your blow shatters your opponent's skull, death is instantaneous, and that's the critical hit chart. So you roll on that, and whenever you do, you find out whether damage has happened with on your head or your body or your legs. Playing this long enough, you'll find that a lot of your party members tend to be extremely damaged. This is actually something you don't actually see in the normal Dungeons Dragons. I mean, it's reflected in hit points, but it's not reflected in actual physical disabilities, which is what combat does. And Warhammer Fantasy Battle does that. And then moving along, you got magic. Magic, as it is integral to the old world. And here is where you look back, and you have your spells, your preparations. Now what that basically means is once you let's look at the art here. Some really nice art. Blanche's art. So what that basically means, now you have the careers that actually have magic as its integral part. The whole game of Warhammer Fantasy is basically moving from one career to another, moving through life, heading towards becoming a hero of sorts. Magic is divided into petty magic spells. You've got battle magic spells. You've got summoning demon spells, summoning spells and stuff like that. Level 4 spells, level 3 spells. In many sense, if you were to compare directly, where Dungeons Dragons was is pretty much where this book strive to be, pound for pound, similar. But again, I think the narrative is slightly different, and it slightly works. Moving on, you got your magical items, and if you're in the world of fantasy, you got to have your magical items, your magical rings, and stuff like that. And then you got religions and beliefs. This one later was pretty much taken into the old world and became the core of all the fluff that came later. Of course, there are some things in here which we should not talk about, which they actually removed totally. But never mind. Now you've got like Cain is still there, of course, but things are removed, things are changed, as it is with the world of magic and the world of Games Workshop. Anyways, moving along, you got the bestiary, and you need things to kill. You need things to kill, and need things to slay, and here's where you find your another color plate, things to slay. Which is nice. The Skaven was just an entry in the fantasy roleplay book, or an army, and this. I mean, at the time, this was very exciting. Oh, look, Redman. Of course, this is a time when things were, I wanted simpler, more varied. I don't know, but yeah, the variety of beasts. Amoebas, for example, well, look at that. Bog octopuses. They went out of their way to actually give us a whole slew of different choices to choose from when it comes to, well, look at that, giant clan. To choose from when it comes to things to slay and things to kill. If anything, this book is mostly lists, mostly things to read. Which is why when you actually get it, you'd spend days, if not weeks, if not months, reading all the entries. And then the world. Now, the world of the old world finds its beginnings more or less here. It's where they give you the world guide, history of the world, the story. But let me just say, it's the story of the old world up to this point. Things have changed slightly. I mean, going back here and reading, you sort of wonder, what happened to those guys and these guys? How come? Why did they change it? So if you're gonna get this, don't use this as canon. Use this as what they were trying to go for and where it ended up. Is an interesting thing to compare and maybe look back on and reflect. So yeah, the old world, and then miniatures. Yeah, you gotta have miniatures. You gotta have miniatures. At least one page of miniatures for a game that, well, it's made for a company that in the end became all about miniatures and nothing else. Anyways, here's equipment lists, more things to look at, equipment and stuff like that. And then you've got a sample, a game for you to go through, which is good because you need somebody to have an idea, to give somebody practice with something that's already written. More miniatures to look at. I think I've got some of these miniatures. Maybe I should do a video featuring miniatures that actually will appeared in this rulebook, and see whether I'll get enough people interested, to have a look. Anyways, so scenario, well, more or less like a string of scenarios, a small little campaign. If anything, it's called the Olden Haller Contract. Like I said, you've been playing Dungeons and Dragons. This is familiar, very, very familiar. Character sheets for you to use for different characters. And then you've got things like buildings, right? So you can actually play inside buildings, and it's nice that for a rulebook they actually spent some time to break down buildings as well, inside a building. Some rulebooks assume that you know what you're doing, but I think it's kind of great that this one does that. Does the typical way a temple looks, so you have some idea, especially for those who are extremely new. Then we have tables and charts and tables. Here's the part of the book that usually gets dog-eared a lot, because you're going backwards, instead of going through the whole rulebook to look for all the different tables. And just by looking at the amount of tables you got here gives you an idea of the kind of game you'll be playing. it's it's a lot of rolling of dice. But hey, let me just say that at the time when we did play the game, it was a whole lot of fun. A whole lot of fun. Anyways, you got the little survey thing here, which I thought was quite nice. You can send it back, and this is when Games Workshop was in Eastwood, Nottingham. Yeah, there's a survey, and you fill it in to send back. Okay, wait, let's look at the. Oops, did I just do that? Okay, let's look at the back of the book. Actually, it's a very thick book. Actually, it's substantial. Right, so that's pretty much the rule book. But let me just say a few. I want to add a few things because we just flipped through the whole rule book, right? And here are my, well, in summary, the things I liked about the rule set, or the rule book, or the Warhammer Fantasy game, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay game. Firstly, the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay game is basically playing the setting. Now, if you were to follow anything that's been done by Games Workshop since, you are playing the setting, right? You are playing the setting. One Marine looks like the next Marine, but it's what's behind the Marine, what's behind the colors, and what's behind the regalia and insignias, which what makes each one unique, right? So you don't mind playing with 7 different types of, or collecting 7 different types of Marines, right? Because if each one feels unique, and I think this is where Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay started it all. It's when they understood, or the makers understood, that the setting is everything. You go into the world, the grim dark fantasy world, and you're basically playing inside the world. And they add another level to it by saying, people, heroes, especially in the fantasy roleplay game, are basically the small guy, the nobody, right? The nobody who becomes a hero. So when you start playing the game, you don't immediately make a hero. You make somebody who has potentially the chance of being a hero. And I think taking that one step backwards into character development gives more to talk about when you're actually doing your character. I think if you're looking at it from a totally role-playing point of view, that is absolutely essential. And we did talk about the other thing I want to talk about is the fate points. I thought the fate points was actually quite excellent because it gives the player a chance to avoid an oh no situation. And also, I mean, even in my games, would give, that will allow for that, invisible fate point that the game master would give when it suits the story, and it feels like it's part of the game when you put it there. The fates, right? You never know the fates. I think that's a very, very good element for the game. Now most other games, especially role-playing games, have stats which sort of do not really play into the game. And as I was saying earlier, things like age plays into this game. For example, like if you're playing an older character, it basically means you get access to more skills, right? If you're playing even older characters still, you lose some of the skills because of just age. And why would you play an older character? Maybe for the extra random skill, but why would you play a younger character is, so that you'll be playing that character longer, right? And again, that helps give the option for the player to, role play, for option for the player to have more to write about when they're thinking about their backstory. In fact, I think what the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay rulebook does is it opens up the little chest of imagination that a lot of new RPGers don't know they have. And when you offer the right options, you get the right answers to questions that you'll probably be asking, much later. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Those are my thoughts. It's a good game. I mean, if you find this anyway, get it, pick it up. And if you've been playing, 5e or Dungeons and Dragons or whatever it is, pick this rule book up simply because perhaps with your, advanced skills, you'll be able to appreciate what's happening over here. And for guys who are designing their own role-playing game, something like this is something worth going back and having a look at, simply because it's just a different way of looking at role-playing game. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's been a long time coming. I've been staring at this book for a while, wondering when I'm gonna review it, and I've finally done it. I hope you guys enjoy the review, and if you did, give me a like, a subscribe. If you have some extra, you can actually buy me a coffee if you like. There'll be more role playing books that I want to cover, but I'm trying my best not to make this channel totally about role playing books. I try to skip over some miniature games, some tabletop games and stuff like that, just for variety. But if you're into role playing games, stick around because there are gonna be other role playing games from back in the day to look at. A lot of the newer role playing games actually have a lot of channels that talk about it. So yeah, I'd rather talk about the games which I have, which people don't talk about. So yeah, that's pretty much it. There are no miniatures in this review, but at the end of the day, don't forget to enjoy painting those figures.